A new flashpoint is emerging in the already volatile standoff between Russia and NATO, and this time it's about the sea. Moscow's ambassador to Norway, Nikolai Korchinov, has issued a stark warning. NATO countries are allegedly plotting what he calls an illegal maritime blockade of Russia, particularly in the Baltic and Arctic regions. In an interview with RIA Novosti, Korchinov accused the alliance, including Norway, of putting the Baltic-Arctic region on what he described as a barrack-like footing. According to him, a growing series of military exercises in the region is not about defense, but about restricting Russia's freedom of navigation, a move he claims violates international law. Even more alarming, the envoy alleged that NATO is developing plans for either a partial or complete naval blockade of Russia. He said members such as Norway, Sweden, and Finland are expanding military mobility, building new transport and logistics corridors from west to east, and enabling cross-border use of bases and infrastructure, steps Moscow sees as coordinated containment. Korchinov warned that these preparations escalate tensions and pose a direct threat to Russia's national security, one that would force Moscow to respond with countermeasures. His remarks follow a Bloomberg report that UK Defense Secretary John Healey met with Baltic and Nordic counterparts on the sidelines of the Munich Security Conference to discuss the possible seizure of Russia-linked oil tankers. In recent months, several Russia-linked cargo vessels have been detained by Western countries under various legal grounds. Moscow has condemned the seizures as outright piracy and a violation of international maritime law. The specter of a blockade is not new. Last year, Russian presidential aide Nikolai Patrushev warned that NATO was seeking to cripple Russia's economy by paralyzing ports in St. Petersburg and Kaliningrad and turning the Baltic and Black Seas into what he described as internal waters of the alliance. Now, with military drills intensifying and tensions hardening, the Baltic and Arctic waterways could become the next battleground in the escalating confrontation between Moscow and the West. And if a blockade becomes reality, the consequences could ripple far beyond Europe's shores.
I was coming from the Maghreb, where the national liberation struggles had put an end to colonialism. I do not identify with colonialism. I identify with the national liberation struggle that was fought in the name of principles I share with Algerians, Moroccans, and Tunisians who are back home. That is our shared history. Choose your side, not only in the present, but in the past as well. In the past, we were not enemies, and we never have been. It was the powerful enemies among themselves who pushed the people into battle. Look closely. No, nuclear power is not an independent means of producing energy because we don't have uranium, so we are forced to obtain it from abroad. Secondly, if nuclear power does not pose an immediate danger because it is well managed and well maintained, then allow me to say it is truly extraordinary to see people saying both that they are preparing for war and that they are preparing to put nuclear power everywhere. Because nuclear power is a target. And that's what makes defending this country more difficult than in other countries. And when we've said up until now, we have military nuclear capabilities that protect us. That's true. But the decision has to be made. And it was said that nuclear deterrence exists because France will never accept a battle taking place in Europe. There is a battle in Europe. It's in Ukraine because the Russians invaded their neighbors. So, well, yes, there are madmen who say, yes, we should fire long range at the Russians. Are you crazy? Are we going to accept that such demons have the slightest responsibility? Do you want a Jadot or a Glucksmann to drag you into wars that would be immediately decisive because they would end the moment they began? It only takes one strike on France and there is no more France. That's the truth. We have nothing to gain from war. Nothing, absolutely nothing. And we haven't acted tough. All right, I need to get to my conclusion. But I still have to talk to you about something else, though it's not funny. Something that has nothing to do with you. It's the Epstein case. So you have to say Epstein. Me, I've never said Frankenstein, I say Frankenstein. Just to say he's very ugly and I'm scared. So his name is Epstein? He's very ugly and I'm scared. But still, it's incredible. It's unheard of. It's enough to make you sick, right? I'm one of those people who can't even listen to a story like that. Afterwards, I can't sleep. It's an exceptionally serious situation. First, because of the scale of the crimes that were committed. Ladies and gentlemen, this man spent half the year for 16 years in Paris, on Avenue Foch. And as a journalist said the other night, Mr. Apathy, he said, we don't see why. A guy who committed crimes all year long when he was in the United States, when he arrives in France, he just stops. And all of a sudden, he would become chaste? Because that's just not true. And I think Apathy is right about this matter. And consequently, I am astonished that apparently there are 3 million files. I wouldn't go look at them. And when we discussed it among ourselves, we said, we will not be among those who jump on the first rumor to attack someone and cover them in disgrace. We won't do that. But there is one thing we will do. We demand that justice get involved. We want the criminals to be punished. All of them, without exception, no matter their importance, no matter their place in society, all must be punished. Because if we accept to live in a society where some people are exempt from their crimes, just because it's them and they're too important for us to go after, then it's no longer a society, not even for a moment. I'm going to read you a short text on the subject. As we were having a snack, we started talking about the Epstein case. He and I, let's say, like many of you, have enough intuition to say that this story is extremely serious, that it will cause deep disasters, even, and perhaps especially among those who remain silent, who watch and say, what kind of world is this? What kind of people are these? It will eat away from within what little trust remains in this country. And that is extremely hazardous and deeply concerning for every single one of us, because it can ignite widespread surges of racism, and it can fuel waves of irrational, reckless, and highly irresponsible behaviors. It is truly very dangerous for our society. It is indeed just as impossible for those who hold sovereignty, for political authorities, to run through the streets drunk or naked, to behave like clowns, to openly violate or scorn the laws they themselves have established. That's what we're talking about in the Epstein case. There. And with that, to preserve their majesty, it is impossible to be and not to be at the same time. You cannot be both a thug, a criminal, and at the same time the opposite, someone who gives orders to others and makes laws.
Tomorrow, there will be a support group for Ukraine with everyone present here in Munich. And I think that now, above all, we need to work on what we want to ask for. And ask, what do we want? We want security guarantees for Ukraine, but we also want things for Europeans. Ukraine is defending its territory, and so it is negotiating on territorial issues. The Europeans, all the members of the coalition of volunteers are providing security guarantees. This is what we worked on and decided in January, which was an important step. But we as Europeans also have things to discuss. That's why we need to be at the table to discuss issues of prosperity, the future of our Europe, and the security architecture. So now we need to prepare this as Europeans so that at the right moment we are ready for discussions with the Russians. Thank you very much. I have to run.
Are you going to invite the Russians?
No, I don't think so, unless the war were over, but I don't feel that's what's going to happen. So it's not on the agenda.